This is the Nightshade Cult, a podcast macabre.
We bid you welcome. Enter freely and of your own will.
I'm Nick Grimm.
And I'm David Graves.
We will be your horror hosts for this dissection of David Lynch's 1992 psychological horror prequel, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me.
And as he said, this is my cherry pie present to the fans of the show. However, one that's wrapped in barbed wire.
Yeah, had you watched this movie?
Never. I've never seen it.
It's one of the best movies I hated watching, I think is how I would describe it. I think it's a good movie, but it is a miserable chore of a movie.
I'm glad you said it. It's basically one of those movies where you're watching it and you understand that the artistry and the storytelling and is really high level, and so many things like the cinematography and all of these the acting, the performances in many cases are very, very good.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the topic, it's just a punch in the gut. The whole movie, you're just like, oh damn.
It's deeply uncomfortable, unsettling. The last movie I watched that made me feel like this was The Zone of Interest, which is about Nazis living next to Auschwitz.
Ugh.
And it's like this movie gave me that same sort of sick in the pit of my stomach feeling through the entire movie.
Absolutely. So this is an over 2 hour movie, and by an hour and a half, I was like, oh my God, I need this to be done because it's too much.
Yeah. No, and that was my experience for sure.
The first hour kind of flew by because you're just kind of getting back into Twin Peaks stuff. And they have some pretty high profile actors in the first bit that are,
yeah, you got about 40 minutes of Twin Peaks weirdness at the start of the movie, and then when it kicks into the main story, you're like, ugh.
Yeah, they call that break into two.
Yeah.
It's where you get past the exposition and you're really digging into that A plot, and you're like, oh, this is hard to watch.
And it's weird because usually with prequels there's no sense of stakes because you know who's going to live and who's going to die. You know all of that stuff. In this one, because you know what's coming, we end up in that train car. You know it from the very start of the movie. You dread it through the whole movie. You're just like, no matter what happens, this girl suffers and dies.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh God, just the long march to the sea.
Yeah, so making of this movie is interesting. They originally had a really big budget, and then it ended up changing hands. Who was going to produce or not produce it? Who was going to put it out or whatever? And then the budget got dramatically slashed, and so they ended up making it for somewhere between $10 and $12 million. And it only made $4.2 million at the box office, so it was a huge flop.
Yeah, this movie was a total bomb. Took it to Cannes, booze. David Lynch's last movie won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. This one was just unanimously rejected. Quentin Tarantino said that David Lynch has gone so far up his own ass that I never need to watch another one of his movies. And it's like people flat out rejected this movie. It has been reappraised over the years, but at the time, just a failure on every level.
Yeah, my takeaway from that, and I kind of had this conclusion, and then it was sort of backed up when I did a little reading, that the secret sauce for Twin Peaks was the collaboration between Frost and Lynch.
Yeah.
And with Frost not involved in any way, that really messed things up because
the chemistry's off.
Yeah, it was just totally... It had none of the grounding in solid storytelling that Frost does, and it had all the surrealism and things that are just out there that Lynch brings, and there was nobody there to rein him in.
Yeah.
Frost wanted to do a sequel after the second season, and Lynch was so in love with Laura Palmer, he couldn't see the possibility of doing anything other than a story about Laura Palmer.
Yeah.
And I don't get it, because I don't find Laura Palmer to be all that fascinating.
Yeah, I don't know. I get it. I don't know. I do think the audience would prefer to follow Agent Dale Cooper.
Absolutely.
But I do understand, I think, where Lynch is coming from. I don't know. Are we getting into this enough that we should roll music and just start the dissection? Because I feel like we're already
let's
dissecting storytelling.
Definitely. We'll come back with our dissection of Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me.
After the disappearance of an FBI agent investigating the death of a young woman in a rural Washington town, we follow the final week in the life of another young woman doomed to share the tragic fate of the first.
This, more specifically, is really the story of the unmaking of Laura Palmer, and at the hands of the evil spirit possessing her father. This is just darkness.
It is, and she's well down the road to oblivion when we first meet her.
Oh yeah,
like
absolutely.
She's already doing sex work. She's so chaotic. She was fired from the brothel that hires underage girls that she worked at.
Yeah.
And she's doing cocaine. She's got 2 boyfriends and a million other things going on, and her life is already circling the drain when we first meet her.
Yeah, she's a tragic story. She's clearly an addict, because every time she's running low, she's hounding after her boyfriend who has a connection with the dealer, and there's all this stuff, and it's just like, holy crap, this is not. I mean, I'm not going to say it's not believable for a high schooler, but I didn't know any high schoolers like that. When I was that age, I knew some people into some drugs and stuff, but it wasn't like this level.
Well, I mean, it is crazy. Like, it is over the top because it's overly dramatic. It's rooted in a soap opera. I felt like a lot of it hit very close to home. Like, was fairly realistic for things that people in my periphery. Bobby shooting the cop from the other town in the head when he brings him baby laxative or whatever. That was a little far, but in a lot of the other stuff rang fairly true to me. But that's all after we have like 40 minutes of Chris Isaac and Kiefer Sutherland investigating the death of another girl.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, this movie starts and I was like, oh man, Chris Isaac and Kiefer Sutherland, they must have been fans of Twin Peaks, the show, and now we're going to get a movie with these 2 guys. This is great.
Yeah.
When do we get Dale Cooper to join the 3 amigos here? Yeah. And I was just thinking, like, this is going to be pretty cool. And then they kind of leave. Yeah,
it just the Chris Isaac character disappears, gets sucked into the Black Lodge. Cooper comes to investigate him and to continue the investigation, and then the movie just drastically shifts focus over to Laura Palmer, abruptly.
Yeah, it's a little abrupt is the right word. It's hard to follow. Like, why aren't we following the cops anymore?
Yeah, it's very disjointed, and it's like you have a prologue and then the main story, and they are only thematically connected to each other.
Yeah.
Although we do revisit the FBI several times throughout the course of it.
Yeah, that's true. So the things that this movie did well in this is we have the signature David Lynch dream logic and surrealism. We get, we have the Red Room and all of that stuff. And they do some kind of weird jarring cuts and sort of non-linear seeming narratives.
Since you mentioned this, so it's edited by Mary Sweeney, who is David Lynch's ex-wife. I often forget to mention the editor, but I think the editing in this movie jumps out at you because scenes last longer than you feel like they should, and like they let you sit in uncomfortable moments.
I think he should have hired a pro.
I mean, she's a pro editor.
No, I watched this movie, not a pro.
I think if he didn't have someone to push back on him, it would be even harder to sit.
Yeah, it would have been a 4.5 hour
his
torture porn, basically.
His original cut is 4 hours.
Okay, I would not watch that.
Yeah.
Too long.
I think you send Mary Sweeney a Christmas card, because I think she...
All right, Mary Sweeney, I'm sorry, you are a pro. You were dealing with a tyrant.
Yeah, I think that is more... yeah, his ex-wife. She was not his current wife.
Yeah, so some of the... there's a lot of bizarre imagery and a lot of sort of... They're telling the story of the fractured mental state of Laura Palmer.
Yeah.
Sort of... in an abstract way. They're trying to show, not tell.
Yeah.
And you have to pay attention to follow it, or you can sort of just get lost in this movie.
Yeah. And what I felt like with this movie, rather in what makes it different than the show in the watching experience for me, is things feel so much more like the metaphor and less like fantasy elements. Like, to me, like, Bob is a metaphor for the evil that men do. In the show, Bob is literally like a demon that possesses people.
Yeah.
In the movie, it feels like Bob is a delusion that Laura and Leland have to cover up the incest in their own minds.
Yeah.
Trigger warning. I guess we should have trigger warned at the beginning.
Yeah.
The subject matter of this movie is very yucky stuff.
Yeah, there's incest, rape, sexual assault, trafficking of a minor.
Yeah.
And ultimately murder.
Yeah.
This movie is about terrible things. If you at all are sensitive to about any of that stuff, I would suggest you go listen to one of our more happy episodes than this one. We have a lot of really good ones, especially
go back to Nightmare Before Christmas or something like
back
that.
catalog. Or actually, I think most underrated, underlistened episodes are our year-end favorites.
Oh, that's true. Those are always fun.
We talk about fun stuff, and the conversation is always upbeat. So this is a downer of an episode.
Yeah. So about the 1 hour mark, I recalled... we had both been sort of chatting with Cultist Lance in the comments on YouTube, and you had told him to watch the first season.
Yeah, watch season 1.
And I came in with alternate, watch the movie.
Bad call.
And I thought, oh God, I hope Lance listened to David and didn't listen to me, because I didn't know what I was recommending.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was telling him to watch.
The first 8 episodes are the best part of this show, this whole franchise.
That was Lisa's conclusion yesterday, because we've been watching The Return also, and she was like, that first season was magic.
Absolutely.
And nothing has felt the same way ever since.
Yeah, I really feel like when you're meeting Dale Cooper and you're meeting Audrey Horne and all of that, it just feels magical. It's a very special show.
And the subject matter of this movie kept people away from it. Like, Laura Flynn Boyle does not come back as Donna.
They recast her because she didn't want to be in it.
She didn't want to be in it. Kyle Mack didn't want to be in it. That's where the Chris Isaac character comes from, is to pad out those scenes.
Yeah, he said he would be in it, but they had to film all of his scenes in 5 days.
Yeah.
And so they rewrote a bunch of stuff so that Dale Cooper could be in it, and they could do all of Kyle's scenes in 5 days, and then he could just leave because he didn't want to be there for any of that downer stuff.
Yeah. So I get it. You mentioned earlier Frost is not involved. Instead of Frost as a writing partner, Robert Ingalls wrote the screenplay with David Lynch. He was a writer on the TV show. He's from the team, but Frost they were already kind of on shaky ground.
Yeah.
After season 2, and then when Lynch insisted on doing a prequel instead of continuing the story, that's when Frost said, "I'm out."
Yeah, at least they gave Frost a producer credit on the movie, so he gets a little cash.
He's part of this. You can't remove him from it. So much of it is his DNA.
Yeah, I think it's easy to think of Twin Peaks as the David Lynch TV show, but we see now that it's not possible without Frost. And since I read his book, it's super cohesive and coherent and well done.
Yeah,
like the Mark Frost book is awesome.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. Frost is a real sort of nuts and bolts storyteller, and David Lynch is like doing this sort of like quasi Hindu symbolism stuff, like it's all based on sort of like Vedic scripture, and he's on a different planet in actually sort of literally than Mark Frost is.
Yeah. And I know this is like probably a weird connection, and I'm only making this connection because of the movies and shows and stuff that we have reviewed. But I really see a lot in David Lynch's stuff, expressionism. And so I think of like Murnau.
Yeah.
And like, it really feels like that. There's like massive exaggeration and things look extremely stylized. And the lighting is it's like really bright or really dark. It really feels like that early 1900s, expressionist style filmmaking.
Yeah. Which, I mean, he went to the AFI in Los Angeles.
He's seen all that stuff.
You can imagine, especially if you look at his first 2 movies, Eraserhead and Elephant Man. He's so rooted in the Gothic tradition. He was making black and white movies in the 70s and 80s. It's like he's steeped in that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I got I wouldn't say a lot of stuff to say about the directing and all of that, because a lot of it we've said in the last 2 episodes with the whole symbolism that they use here, with, the Red Room, the Black Lodge, all this stuff.
The Black Lodge is a lower plane, right? Like it's a hell dimension. I was skimming through, I'll get deeper into this when we get into The Return, because I think The Return explores these ideas, like what the Black Lodge is, and what the spirits are even more. But the man from another world, the arm, the little person in the Red Room, he's a hungry ghost. I think. Like they're all. This is all stuff that comes from like Indian scripture, and then it's reinterpreted into the Lynch prism of this sort of mid-century aesthetics.
He does maintain that mid-century look. It's very interesting. Everything looks dated.
Yeah, it's sort of 40s through 60s all at the same time. It's you definitely do get a lot of the Lynch visuals here. Like, I am like the way he composes his shots is always beautiful and interesting. Like he puts the camera in interesting places. He's just visually a very interesting filmmaker. He has just a totally unique POV. No one else would put the camera where he puts it. He's just a singular person that way.
I agree, and he is really interesting. And I mean, I was introduced to David Lynch's filmmaking through Dune, and I still like Dune best. Something about that, the way he made that, it just felt really good. And that first season of Twin Peaks felt really good, but this movie doesn't feel good at all.
No, this movie feels bad. So I listened to the Blank Check podcast. They did a series on David Lynch just kind of shortly before he died, actually. And I listened to their episode on this movie. And Griffin Newman, who's one of the hosts on there, he says that most of David Lynch's filmography seems to be reckoning with how seemingly good people do evil things.
Okay.
And that is just something that comes up over and over again. Like these people that on the surface, like Leland Palmer is on a surface level, he's a successful person. He's a pillar in his community. And he has this horrible secret underneath it. And the explanation seems to be a demon possessed him. Like it's very, like, because there's no other reason why you would do these things unless there was some sort of supernatural force driving you to do it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's an explanation like that, or maybe it's that they're just characterizing that urge as demonic.
Yeah, that's definitely how this movie feels. Like this movie makes it feel like a delusion that Laura's snapping out of.
Yeah,
because there's that there's the scene where she realizes the pages in her diary about Bob
have been torn out.
Yeah, assaulting her have been torn out of the diary. And she goes into the house and sees Bob is in her room. Then she runs out of the house and her dad leaves. And she starts to understand that Bob is her dad.
Yeah,
Bob Leland Palmer.
Yeah, Bob is her mind blocking it out and whatnot.
Yeah.
But and we get kind of near the end, we kind of get a full picture of what's happening. Leland is drugging his wife to sleep, so she's knocked out from being roofied, and then he's going into his daughter's room and raping her.
Yeah,
it's just grisly, dude.
I'm glad that you said it because I don't know that I can even get through describing it. Like, it is so upsetting, and like all of those sequences, like when he's like standing over her malevolently watching her drink the milk, and she sort of knows.
She knows bad things are happening,
yeah.
And she doesn't really. The performance from the actress is really good.
Yeah, we'll get more into that
because she really, without any lines, we understand what she's going through,
and we sort of disregarded her in the TV show.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy that character,
and I've got a lot. Like the performance in this movie is on another level than the performance she does in the TV show.
Absolutely, this is like silver screen worthy performance.
Yeah.
She's one of the better performances in this movie.
Yeah, and so oh god, it's just I know we just keep saying this. It's a deeply upsetting movie.
Yeah, I mean, it should be very clear. I didn't like this movie at all. So it won't be a surprise when we get to the end when we're rating things. But yeah, here's the thing. Mm-hmm. While we're talking about why this movie is this way, I'm an amateur at writing, but I would consider myself a very experienced person who writes games and experiences for other people. I've done storytelling in various LARPing organizations from the national, regional, local level, and I've run tabletop games forever. Nobody likes losses all the time. Tragedy is meant to be the sour so that the sweet can be that much sweeter. When you're crafting a narrative, or in the case of a game, an experience for other people, the idea should be that the ultimate goal is for them to enjoy it.
Right.
I think that's my perspective, obviously. I think David Lynch's perspective is not so that people can enjoy. His perspective is so that he can manifest the vision that he has. And if you enjoy it or you don't, that's not relevant to him.
Yes, that's absolutely accurate. I think what he's done, he's taken Laura Palmer from an object, which she was literally just a dead body wrapped in plastic, and made her the protagonist of the film. But her story is just a tragedy. even like if you could call like the bright moments in her, there is no bright moment.
It's like, oh, she scored drugs when she wanted drugs. Okay, that's a win for her.
Yeah. She has like a couple of like sweet moments with Donna, and that's really like, even like people like James is a tool bag.
Yeah,
like,
and she just lied to him the whole time.
Yeah, and James is like in a fantasy world, you know, like he's not even on the same planet as her. He's in the trappings of being a biker or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's a good boy.
Yeah, he's a teddy bear. I mean, he's a good boy. He's a member, he's a bookhouse boy.
Yeah. So James like thinks he's on some sort of level with Laura, but he's not. Bobby has a much more honest relationship with Laura, where he's sort of aware she's with him for the drugs.
Yeah, there's a scene, and this probably goes in performances, but whatever. There's a scene where like she just totally shits on Bobby in front of the high school, and he basically they go back and forth, and you can see like what passes between them. He's like, I see you. I know what you're doing. Yeah, fuck you. I appreciate you. Like, game respect game. You're a shitbird. I'm a shitbird, and I see what's going on here. And their relationship continues. They're very honest at how both of them are terrible, and they both know it.
It's really weird how, on a surface level, James is the good boy, and Bobby is. I mean, Bobby is a shitbird.
Yeah,
that's absolutely the right word to call him, but Bobby is has so much more depth to him. Like James is just he's just that cool.
He's a cardboard cutout.
Yeah,
he's not
he's not a person.
The character's boring. The acting sucks.
Bobby is an interesting, complex, flawed character,
and the acting is good.
Yeah, it is. We're on the same page. A lot of people, since we're kind of doing visuals at this point.
Yeah.
It's the team from the pilot. Essentially, it's cinematographer Ron Garcia and production and costume designer Patricia Norris. It's the classic Twin Peaks team that set the look of the show to begin with, and it looks like Twin Peaks.
Absolutely. I love it when you see the sign, you hear the song.
What a bait and switch that song and the sign is, because you go that's our transition out of the prologue.
Yeah,
right?
That's when we get into the story,
and then we see the iconic shot of the road into town and the Twin Peaks sign with the Misty Mountain back behind it, and the Angelo Badalamenti score comes in,
masterpiece,
and you go, finally. Now we're getting into business.
Yes.
And then you're just like, and then you just get hit in the face with this snuff film, and you're like, God damn it. Like, that's not at all what I expected when I saw that sign. That sign told me I was in for quirky, small town nonsense. Like, I was really like, it sets you up for something. And then like you said, the quote about the cherry pie wrapped in barbed wire. Totally. Like, I feel like the pie I like so much is here, but it hurts. It hurts to get at it.
Yeah, it really is. Man, when I hear that song and I see that sign, I'm like,
It does, like, it's so weird. I've wanted to go up there so bad all this time watching it. I'm like, I just need to go up and see Snoqualmie Falls now. Like,
yeah, I want to go to that lodge.
Yeah.
That couldn't be that far. We should do a drive up there, just fuck around for a day.
Yeah, it's like a
couple hours.
I think it's not even 2 hours away.
Oh, yeah. We should do that. That'd be fun.
This is a good segue, though, because I mentioned Angelo Badalamenti. Let's talk audio.
I mean, this was a full-on movie soundtrack. It was even released by Warner Brothers Records, and it was exactly what you expect from Twin Peaks soundtrack. I've talked a lot about what I like and what I don't like. Honestly, though, a lot of the things that I didn't like from the series, especially season 2 stuff with the kind of the weird jazzy guitar stuff, it's not there.
Yeah.
It's very, very absent. It's mostly the synthy, moody stuff.
Yeah.
Only one time, so there were 2 times that the music jumped out at me. One was the theme, and when you see the sign, and I was just like, yeah. And then the other time, it happened at an hour and 13 minutes in. I took note of it, and they're in the bar, and there's the band, and they're like playing, but the music that we're hearing is not what they're playing.
The band, the weird strip club in Canada.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And
so I know the track. The track is called The Pink Room.
See, I named it What If Enya Wasn't Good?
Oh, it has female vocals?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Then it's not The Pink Room.
Okay.
Then it is the one, it's Questions in a World of Blue with vocals by Julie Cruz.
And What If Enya Wasn't Good?
Okay. Because I like the Pink Room song.
Okay.
And I like the Julie Cruz song too. I've been listening to this album for the last couple of days.
Have you listened to Enya?
No, I don't.
Not recently?
See,
you should. It's dope.
Yeah, you like Enya. That's never been my speed.
I mean, not to interrupt too much, but with regard to Enya, every time I posted on it on social media, all of the dudes that I know from the metal scene that are in like extreme metal bands, like the bass player from Agalloch and Jory from NF and whatnot, they're all like, yeah, Enya is the shit.
That's their chill out
all
music?
Of the most extreme metalheads like Enya.
It's an interesting
it is what it is.
thing, yeah. I like... I figured there would be other tracks on this because it gets into avant jazz stuff, which you always hate. And so I was like, some of like the more far out jazzy songs, I was like, oh, David won't like this. But
I will admit that after about 90 minutes, I started I think I was distancing myself from this movie.
You got to.
I was insulating. I was feeling bad, and I was insulating myself from the bad feelings, but I was gonna finish the fucking movie.
It's really funny you say that because I feel like I've been in my mind running away from this movie for like a week. Like I've been trying. Like it took me a good 2 days to crawl out of the hole of this movie.
Yeah, I am really good at insulating myself from bad feelings. It probably comes from fighting in the war.
Like, I don't want this.
Yeah, it's like I will just become a tower of iron will and I won't accept this.
Yeah.
And so I kind of got to the point where I just wasn't accepting input. I mean, I was watching the movie, but I wasn't thinking much about it because I was just like, man, it's not a scary movie. That's the thing. If you're listening to this and thinking, wow, this is scary, whatever, it's not scary. It's
just unsettling.
Just dark. It's just sinister. It's all like really graphic, bad scenes about shit you don't want to watch.
Yeah, it's so true. Like I felt like I spent like how Good Cooper gets trapped in the lodge. I feel like I spent 2 days in the Black Lodge sitting there with the man from another world talking backwards to me. Like it was just like, how do I get out of here? I don't want to be in here forever.
Yeah, I mean, so this movie, speaking of sound, it did I would say very effectively use sound design with like whispers and distortion on the voice on the tracks of certain people, especially in dream sequences. And the movie's music is very pervasive, but then there would be sudden silences, and that would really it would dramatically increase the impact of a scene when there's no music going over something really dark happening. It's kind of like when you're watching an anime and a guy is going to do his like crazy killing move or something, and it just goes black and white pencil drawings for a second, and then it happens. You're like, oh shit, it went back down to the basics. It's so crazy.
I'm trying to remember the scene where Leland and Laura are in the car and Mike is chasing
and they're just yelling and yelling and yelling.
And the music's intense there too, right? Like, so the music and the car is revving. He's burning the engine out like he's like burning it up in a low gear or something, and Laura's screaming and Mike is screaming at him, and like it's so upsetting. The whole thing.
I was like, what? And I like turned it down.
Yeah, it's just like off-putting. And so David Lynch, I believe, has a sound designer credit on this, and the music and the sound design are enmeshed in each other, and it's just a deeply unsettling movie, like sound-wise.
Yeah, and there's a couple of scenes where the music is so loud and the voices are mixed so low that they needed subtitles so you would know what they're saying and they're speaking English.
That's the track, The Pink Room, I think.
Yeah.
Is when, because they go to this strip club in Canada.
Yeah, with these rando dudes that pick them up.
Well, I mean, not rando, customers.
That's true. They're Johns.
They're Johns. And Donna has basically brought herself along. She's like, if you're going to do this, then I'm going to go do this. And they go to this club, and it's like you said, it's so loud in there that we have subtitles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like being at a show. It's so loud, like at a live music or something.
The fucked up thing was, I would totally hang out at that bar. I like watching that. I thought, this sort of place I'd walk into and be like, pretty cool band, cool people hanging out.
Yeah, they were just hanging out.
Yeah, there's a guy going down on two girls under a table over there.
There's definitely a dude and some teenagers over there.
Fair point. If you knew that so many of the people in here were high school students, and in the real world, it would be obvious. Like,
absolutely, none of the people in this show or movie that portray high school students even look close. They look like they're 25.
Yeah, I was like, most of these people are approaching 30. They're probably under 30 still, but they're getting close.
Yeah, they don't look like high school students at all. There's no childishness left in them.
Yeah, maybe James.
No, he just looks like a board. He looks like he's carved out of wood.
Oh shit! I thought that was one of the totem poles from the Great Northern, but it's local soft biker James.
Soft biker, I love that title. That's good. All right, so let's talk about performances.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Cheryl Lee as Laura Palmer.
Yeah, she's the star. Yeah, and she's a
girl in crisis, man. Like, woof.
I don't think she did a poor job. It was a pretty decent performance. None of the actual acting scenes that she did really knocked my socks off. They were pretty all right. I don't think she's a super experienced actress.
She wasn't.
And so it's sort of good, but it's also sort of like, okay, I'm used to seeing good acting.
I think her dialogue reads are not great. Her emotional, like, rawness is incredible.
Yeah, and I think that's why Lynch liked her.
Yeah.
Is because she was able to do really good nonverbal stuff.
Yeah. Like, that's when you would, like, when I would really say the acting, like, when she's screaming and crying and inconsolable, or when she's sort of disassociated and being sexy, like, all of those scenes are strong. But when she's like just sitting on the couch reading dialogue with Donna, that's not her best moment.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not shit talking her. I think it was definitely a professional level job. It just didn't blow me away.
Yeah.
I thought that Ray Wise as Leland Palmer, his performance was diabolical.
Yeah. Holy shit.
He was like a man possessed. He played it off.
And I watched a panel discussion with him where he was talking about how David Lynch sprung it on him that he was the one that had done it.
Oh, yeah.
And he had no idea. And he had felt like he had not been playing it as though he was the killer up until that point, which is perfect for someone who's either possessed or disassociated when they're doing the things that they're doing. And the thing that's always impressed me with his performance is you can see it on his face. If you're looking at Bob or you're looking at Leland, you can see it in his eyes.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like, it's crazy. It's probably the best performance of his career. I feel, having seen him in a lot of movies like RoboCop and stuff, this is the most acting I've ever seen him do.
Yeah, Ray Wise, really good performance. This was a 5-star performance out of him. He did a great job. I mean, Kyle Mack was barely in it, but I do enjoy me some Agent Dale Cooper.
You just want more. You just want more of him every time he shows up, and like even like weird shit like where he is running back and forth to look at the security camera, and trying to see the lag in it. Like somehow is endlessly charming the way he does it. You're just like, oh, Coop, I love this guy.
Yeah.
Like the way the whole town was enchanted by him when he showed up, like you feel that way.
Yeah. So who do you want to talk about next? Because there's a lot of bit parts in here.
Yeah, you know.
Like David Bowie.
He wasn't happy with his performance, and I wasn't impressed with it.
It was mediocre.
He filmed this sort of like he had 5 days before Tin Machine went off on tour, and he didn't feel like he got his Louisiana accent right. There's more deleted scenes with him, and he's not great.
Yeah, he absolutely sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Like when he started talking, I was like, ugh, an Englishman trying to be Southern.
Yeah.
Bad.
Yeah, and so when that character returns in Twin Peaks: The Return, and in some form, and they asked him to do it, and he said, get someone actually from Louisiana because I can't do the voice.
Well, that's smart. He's self-aware. He's not an egomaniac.
Who else? Dana Ashbrook as Bobby Briggs. We were talking about him a little bit.
Yeah, he does great.
He's really good. Like, Bobby is the surprise character. From that first episode of the show, you sort of hate Bobby immediately.
Yeah, you definitely hate him.
And he has turned into, like, the shitbird that you sort of root for on some level. You're like, I hope things work out for Bobby.
Yeah, it's definitely like him and Audrey are the two like terrible people that you root for.
Yeah, and that's why. Yeah, it's interesting, and it gets mentioned in the pilot of the show that Bobby killed someone. So I was sort of glad to see it happen. Like, oh, that's true. Bobby really did kill someone.
He pulled out a pistol and shot a man.
Yeah, and it was. I'm pretty sure it was the shitty cop from the prologue.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the guy with the mustache, and they didn't really hide the body. He just sort of pushed some leaf litter on top of him and was like, "Help me hide the body." Yeah. So Dana Ashbrook, Bobby Briggs, good. Phoebe Augustine as Ronette Pulaski, who was in a coma through most of the show.
Mm-hmm. Meh.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing like Leo, Eric DeRay. Yeah, okay, he played Leo. It wasn't special. It was just exactly what we expected.
Let me go through some people that we haven't seen before. Chris Isaac as special agent Chester Desmond.
I liked that performance.
Pretty good. There's a moment when he's there with Kiefer Sutherland and the old guy from Reaper Man, Harry Dean Stanton. Mm-hmm. And you're, Chris Isaac's not a professional. You've got two high level actors here, and Chris Isaac he's
doing his best.
I think he probably got you did great, Chris, afterwards.
Yeah, Kiefer Sutherland is on a different level, like by a lot.
Yeah, and those scenes you kind of see Kiefer like hand-holding him a little bit, even though the character relationship is the opposite.
Yeah.
Where he's sort of leading the more naive agent along. Kiefer is leading those scenes with Chris Isaac, and it's helping him
He's
along.
topping from the bottom.
Yeah. He's power bottom. Kiefer Sutherland power bottom. Episode title.
He'll love it.
Yeah. It's like, what the hell? What did I do?
It's like that shit from 1992.
Because it's not even a Lost Boys episode. That's where I was the power bottom. Who else did we want to talk about?
I mean, I think that we get fairly good performances out of most of the characters from the show. Like the guy, like Frank Silva, that plays Bob. I mean, he's maniacal and he's crazy and he's like he is what you want out of Bob.
I've got long, graying blonde hair. And Bob makes me want to cut my hair. When I see Bob, I was like, do I look like Killer Bob?
Well, you have a beard, so it helps.
It's very uncomfortable. Killer Bob makes me uncomfortable, and any similarity to him makes me uncomfortable. So that's good. Good job, Frank. You're a real creep in these shows and movie, and I don't like watching you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anybody else that I really feel like talking about. There were some other people that also there, but did exactly what they did in the show.
Catherine Coulson as the log lady. She has the good, like, she's the character that comes in and states the theme of the movie in dialogue. So I copy pasted that because she's the movie's called Fire Walks with Me. She tells Laura, when that kind of fire starts, it's very hard to put out. The tender boughs of innocence burn first, and the wind rises, and then all goodness is in jeopardy. And that's what the movie is all about. Leland was sexually abused when he was a child. Leland is sexually abusing his daughter, and Laura doesn't have... She's trying to stop... Like, the way it's portrayed in the show, Bob's going to take her over, right? She feels like Bob is going to inhabit her next, and she sort of wants to die to stop that from going forward. So it's just like... that. I just felt like that encapsulated the whole theme of the movie.
Yeah. And that was good. I like that actress and that character. The log lady is in season 1. She's kind of a gimmick, but ultimately she's the wisdom of the show.
Yeah. Last one I want to highlight before we move on is Moira Kelly as Donna Hayward, because it's not Laura Flynn Boyle, and I like this Donna better. I don't know if I'm unique in feeling that way.
I thought she did a good job.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like her better, just because I was so used to the other one.
Yeah, because I've talked to people and they're like, I don't like that Donna's a different person. And I was like, I do. Like, I was like, I wish this was always Donna. So I think Moira Kelly did good.
Yeah. It was definitely a good performance, and she didn't take me out of the moment while I was watching it.
Okay. So with that concluded,
all right.
What's your personal highlight of this movie that you clearly hated?
Nothing.
You don't have a single thing.
I said I liked that it informed me about the history and the story and the plot of the series to come. It helped me greater understand the show, so I think I could actually go back and watch season 1 again and get more out of season 1. Just like reading that book let me get a lot out of it.
Okay.
And that, but really, there, like, when I think of a personal highlight, I try to think of like a scene that I truly enjoyed, and there's just almost no scene that I truly enjoyed. How about you? What was your personal highlight?
So I was telling you as we came down
here. No, hold on.
Okay.
I want to retract that. When you see the sign and you hear the song, that's it.
That's a good one. That is a pretty good one. That is the best time you feel in the movie.
It's the only win.
or the first time Cooper shows up, you go, oh, Cooper.
Yeah.
Like you have that little moment of like, someone I know.
Yeah. So what about you? What's your personal highlight?
So I was telling you as we came down here, I discovered reviewing my notes, I had left this part blank because similar to you, I had struggled to find a scene or a moment to call a highlight because, like you said, it's something in the movie that you enjoyed more than the other moments, and there just wasn't anything. So what I settled on was the relationship between Laura and Donna and the way that is portrayed, because we encountered like Donna as this sort of girl detective who has to get to the bottom of Laura Palmer's murder in the TV show. And I feel like the movie really showed me why Donna felt so close to Laura. And like, they have a very complicated, realistic relationship where it's like they sort of both envy and pity each other at the same time. It's, I don't know. It's something you've seen. You've seen people that really have this dynamic. One of them is going off the rails and one's a good girl. And the good girl sort of grounds the crazy one, and the crazy one pulls the good one out of her comfort zone.
Yeah.
So I thought that it just was a really a strong relationship portrayal, and so that ended up being my personal highlight.
Nice. I like that too. That's a good one.
What worked for you?
There was a quote that actually made me laugh out loud when the guy goes, "You're more popular than Uncle's Day at a whorehouse."
That is a good one.
I was like, damn, Uncle's Day? Oh, this movie's creepy.
You know, I really didn't really think of it as like uncles of the girls working at the...
Yeah, that's Uncle's Day. Bring your uncle to work, or Uncle's Day, you know, like...
You know, I just laughed at it without actually unpacking what it meant.
Yeah.
Oof. It is funny, though.
It made me actually laugh because it's so dark.
Yeah.
And he just delivers the line like it's just a saying you say. It's just a thing you say.
Oof.
You know, like, so I laughed because of it's absolutely absurd.
Okay.
And then particularly the exaggerated performance of Leland Palmer.
Okay.
That character, Ray Wise, in specific, there are other good performances in here too, but the way that he would kind of leap off the screen when he was possessed, his physical mannerisms changed. He was no longer like, because Ray Wise is a dude with like really good posture, and when he walks, he actually looks like he's taken dance classes. Like he looks like a guy who
Leland likes to sing.
He's graceful. Like Ray Wise is really graceful and sure in his movements, but when he's Bob, he's like, his spine is kind of curled forward, not full hunchback, but just like kind of a forward aggressive posture. His eyes are buggy. His muscles look tense. Like, you could tell Ray Wise was really acting his ass off, and it was a highlight for me because I thought that although he is ultimately the villain of this movie, I could appreciate the performance, like the Jekyll and Hyde-like performance.
Yes, for sure.
And so I thought that was pretty cool. What about you?
The early sequences with Chris Isaac and Kiefer Sutherland, I think, are really strong, especially when you get the three-way with Harry Dean Stanton in the trailer park. They're just so, like, that's the sort of Twin Peaks small-town awkwardness that you can associate with the show, and it's one of the only times they deliver it. Heartbreaking performances from Cheryl Lee and Ray Wise, and then there's something you didn't touch on, the music and sound design and how unnerving the soundscape in the movie is.
For sure.
It's just like, you know, like usually I overuse iconic, and unsettling has been the word I've said probably a dozen times.
Yeah, it's maybe disturbing.
Yeah, all of those. All right. Get ready strap in for the next half hour.
Yeah.
What didn't work for you?
Okay, so I try to keep it brief because I know sometimes I can go off, and some of the cultists kind of like that. But
I think you deploy your tirades judiciously enough that everyone's like, they kind of do like it.
Okay, so first of all, this movie starts slow as fuck. It's a parody of the show, not an homage. It's like dressing someone up like a clown because you heard that someone else likes funny stuff. It's like, bro, this is not funny. This is not Twin Peaks.
Okay.
This is some bullshit that's like Twin Peaks. It's Twin Peaks adjacent, but not as good until we get Dale Cooper.
Right.
Basically, everything up until then, trash. Don't give it to me. I don't want it.
And that was one of my things that
40
worked.
minutes. Okay, the second thing, this whole movie is about the destruction of a young woman. It's utterly unenjoyable.
Yeah.
Who makes a movie like that? It's not fun. It's not good. It's not enjoyable. It's just terrible. Like,
it's torturous.
The entire premise of this, it's like a cherry pie wrapped in barbed wire, but then used as a suppository. It's fucking horrible. Okay, then the part that really, like, I just was like, fuck, man, why am I watching this? Would it be good pod if I just said, I can't finish this shit? It's terrible. When he drugs his wife and then goes to Laura's room, I'm just like...
It's awful.
I feel terrible even being a witness to this, and I don't want to watch this, and I want this to end, and I just don't like this. It's bad. It's not enjoyable. It's a bad movie. This is the worst scene in the bad movie.
I had this in that scene you're talking about. It starts out Bob and not Leland.
Yeah.
And I had this moment where I said to myself, because I'm sitting there by myself watching this, I go, at least it's Bob and not Leland.
Mm-hmm.
And then it changes into Leland, and I was like, and they took that away from me too. Like, it was like that shred of I don't know what you call it, like obfuscation over the crime was taken away, and you're forced to look at it.
Yeah, they pulled back the shroud from the body and made you just look. And it's just it was revolting to me. Like, I absolutely did not want to watch it. So what about you? What didn't work for you?
I'm going to say the same things in a more judicious way.
I'm
going to say the length of the film combined with the troubling subject matter makes it hard to take. The connections to the show feel disjointed. Like it just shifts gears wildly every time we go to the FBI office or whatever. It just feels like a totally different movie.
I wanted to go watch something that was faster paced and more topical, like Rings of Power.
Season 2 is pretty good. Season one was a little bit of a fire walk with me, but season 2 is more like a season 1 of
Okay, well, I haven't seen season 2 because season 1 was so bad.
Yeah. And then finally, I think the musician actors are not on the level of some of their scene partners.
Oh, that's absolutely true.
And so those were the things that didn't work for me. Final thoughts and rating. I think I'm very curious what you're going to give this.
This is the worst movie that we've ever watched.
No, is it really the worst movie or the most unpleasant? Like, what do you mean when it's the worst?
So by worst, I mean the movie I would least like to watch.
Okay.
The craftsmanship was good. The writing was not, because the story isn't interesting.
Okay.
There's no twists.
Oh, no.
It's just a linear grind.
It's just a train.
They're just like, okay, so at the very beginning, we're going to put your face on the pavement. We're going to put our foot on your neck. And then we're just going to grind for 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a 1-star movie. Don't watch this movie. Period. I don't care if you're a super fan of this the whole Twin Peaks franchise. You will not like this movie. It's not enjoyable to anyone. Period. No one would enjoy this movie. So maybe if you're like an auteur film critic, blah, 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 and you want to sound like really highbrow and holier than thou, that, I can enjoy things that are disturbing and blah, blah, blah. It's like the people who drink beer that tastes like Pine Sol and try to tell you about the citrus notes. Yeah, just go fuck off. This is bad.
Okay.
There are a million better movies in the world. No one should watch this movie.
Oh, wow.
Go ahead. What do you think?
I've been struggling with it because I do think it is a good movie, but I hated watching it. And I put those into, I think you were meant to feel uncomfortable. Like that is the goal of the artist and the art. And so it worked. And
for sure.
Ultimately, what I came down to was, by your standards that you usually use, 3 is a qualified recommendation.
Sure, yeah.
And I think it's probably a higher level of film craft than that, but it's impossible to give it a higher score.
So who are you recommending it to with what qualifier?
I would recommend it to people who are fans of David Lynch and fans of the TV show, with the qualifier that it's basically a teenage snuff film. Like, this is the tragic end of Laura Palmer's life, and it's upsetting to watch.
Okay.
You know, like, and if going into I mean, my regret that I sort of recommended to Lance to watch it was I didn't give him any of those qualifiers.
Yeah.
Because I knew, but I didn't know. Like, I didn't know how upsetting the movie would be.
So I almost gave it a 2. I originally had typed 2.
Yeah.
Because of the film craft.
Yeah.
But like,
you've talked yourself down over the course of this.
Well, I've talked myself down over this, but it was the weakest of 2s.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with somebody about reviews and stuff, and they were saying basically that they don't look at 1-star reviews on things because those are people that just like to shit on things or whatever. They look at the 2-star reviews because that was an honest person who had something to say. So I thought, this is a 2. I'm an honest person with something to say, but really, I just don't recommend this to anyone. Not that it's not good. Like, I just don't recommend it to anyone.
Yeah.
So I can't even give it a 2.
Okay.
Because it is what it is.
That is not surprising. Like, that's, and I think, obviously, you finished it.
Yeah, I made myself.
And you thought about it. You took notes. We've had a good discussion about it. No one could say you didn't give it the college try and give it the benefit of the doubt.
And I'm a fan of David Lynch.
Yeah.
The fuck?
Well, yeah. It's just, just to repeat myself, it's a tough sit. This is one of the toughest sits I've had in the last few years. Like, the only thing that made me feel this unhappy was the Holocaust movie that came out 2 years ago. You know? And it's that same thing where you're just watching misery, and there's this inevitability to it where there is no redemption. No one is going to save us from this. The atrocity is just going to happen.
I know that there are people that like this kind of thing, that they really like absolute tragedies. I tried to, I started reading a book a couple of years ago from the recommendation of a friend, and it's like a grim, dark medieval story in like a pseudo fantasy, but very realistic world. And it's like this, to where it's just loss after loss after loss, but continue like willpower forward. And it's just like, it's meant to be like the story of an indomitable person. And I'm just like, man, I just feel bad every time I read this, pick this up. And so I just stopped reading it. And so that's sort of like, I know there's an audience for this.
Yeah.
I'm not that audience. I like enjoying things.
Yeah.
I know that's weird, right?
The moment of hope at the end of the movie, we didn't talk about this, that you see Laura's angelic spirit leave, and you have this sense of her long, arduous suffering is over, and so is ours, because we've been going on the journey with her. And it's like bittersweet at best. You're like, maybe in the next life things won't be as bad for her. And I guess maybe it says something about me, but I didn't have a ton of love for Laura. She's a victim, and nobody deserves to have that stuff happen to him.
but she was also a very manipulative person. She was definitely a bad friend, an unfaithful partner.
Yeah.
She was a person who is the product of her environment.
Yeah.
And so it made her a despicable person, an unlikable person, a charismatic
manipulator,
scumbag.
Yeah.
And so I felt sorry for what she had become. She was basically like Smeagol to me. And it's just like, man, I feel bad for you, but I definitely don't like you.
No, the people that I grew to empathize more with were Bobby and Donna, who are the people closest to her.
They caught shrapnel for her.
Yeah, and you really sort of get where they are when the show starts.
Why?
How their relationship to her sort of poisoned them.
Yeah, and why is Donna so damn cynical in the show? Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
And why is Bobby such a turd? Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
And yeah, but so I didn't feel super I wasn't like, oh, the angel Laura. I'm so glad. I'm just like, oh man, at least she's not in pain anymore. I'm glad for that. I don't think anyone should be in pain like that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that she's free. And that's just a sense of relief. It's like the suffering is stopped for me too.
That is, the movie ends and you feel like the foot comes off your neck. You don't feel like Laura is you don't feel like she's redeemed. There's no redemption.
There is no redemption arc here.
Yeah.
Because it takes a long time for Leland to get his too.
Well, and he gets his the same way, dying.
Yeah.
Because there is no redemption for the things he's done, even with Bob controlling him.
Absolutely not. He's a bad dude. So as far as ratings, I always tell what the kind of the zeitgeist is. Obviously, the world is more charitable to this movie than I am.
That is a recent development, though. That has been as the movie has been reappraised.
Yeah, when it first came out, I wholly agree with Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah,
Tarantino had the right of it. He was so far up his own ass. He thought he was looking at art. But the world's IMDb gives it a 7.3, Rotten Tomatoes 65%, and Metacritic gives it 45%.
Okay.
So it's in that 3 range-ish, 3.5, if that's a thing. But like you said, that's a rose-tinted goggles situation.
Okay.
So you want to take a break and come back with the Vault of Darkness?
Let's do that. Before we delve into the Vault of Darkness, we ask that all initiates of the cult follow us on your favorite social media platforms at Nightshade Cult.
If you've enjoyed this uplifting episode, help us grow the cult by sharing it with like-minded people and leave a review wherever you listen.
We've been getting lots of new followers on Blue Sky and Threads and everything. So yeah, awesome. I think the Twin Peaks stuff has been good for us.
Nice. I mean, Twin Peaks. I like Twin Peaks. So
yeah,
I'm glad that other people
don't let this episode dissuade you.
This movie was an anomaly.
Yeah,
Mark Frost is required.
Yeah,
not optional.
And when we were off mic, we were talking about troubling movies that are more enjoyable. David's like 7 and 8 millimeter. Yeah, 8 millimeter, which is literally about snuff film.
Yeah, definitely more enjoyable than this movie.
I don't disagree. Do you have any dark tidings?
I do not. The world is very fucking dark right now.
Look out your window, dark tidings. The inexorable march of fascism.
Jesus Christ. It's like when I was thinking, what is as bad as this movie? Oh, listening to Elon Musk engage in public speaking. That's as bad as this movie. Fucking guy.
Oof.
Anyway, we're not a current events podcast. Free Luigi.
Yeah. We need you again. There's more. There's more work to be done.
Or another Luigi.
Yeah. Bring your brother Mario. Bring Wario and Waluigi.
Exactly. Jesus.
So my dark tiding was much sooner than anticipated. Dune Messiah is scheduled to begin shooting this summer.
Oh, I saw that. Hell yeah. I'm stoked for that.
Denis Villeneuve, after Dune Part 2 came out, he talked a little bit about wanting to do another something original in between. And I think Warner Brothers beep backed up the money truck.
They just flashed the cash.
And he's like, okay, I could do Messiah now. I could do something else afterwards. And then related to that, per Daniel Richman, aka Daniel RPK on Twitter, he has said Gareth Edwards has been approached to direct the next Dune installment after Messiah.
I saw that too. I wasn't sure that we really need more after Messiah.
There's more books.
I've read all the books, and they get worse.
Wouldn't you love me if I was a worm?
Yeah, they get worse. Although I will say, if they follow the Duncan, Idaho Gola story, that could be really interesting.
Yeah. I like Gareth Edwards a lot. The movies he's done, starting with his first independent movie, Monsters, Godzilla, Rogue One, The Creator. As far as I'm concerned, Gareth Edwards has no loses. All his movies have been good. So I think he's a good choice for it.
Nice. Well, actually, I have a nerdy dark tiding.
Okay, good.
So I love Dimension 20. It's like a live play show, but it's not raw. It's edited, so it's really smooth and fast and easy to watch. And during the time where the game master, kind of the brain of the operation, he just had a child, and just before his child was born, they put in the can they do these mini seasons with guests, and they do like an 8-episode campaign with guest players and stuff. And I just finished the last one, which is the second season of Dungeons and Drag Queens, that has a bunch of famous drag queens from like Drag Race and whatever, and they're all extremely funny, and it's very enjoyable. They just announced the next mini season while Brennan takes some nice leave for his newborn child. And it's called Titan Takedown, and it is a mashup of a D&D and professional wrestling. And they've actually got some professional wrestlers that are going to be as the players. I'm not a wrestling follower, so I don't know any of these names, but it's Bailey, who's the women's US champion, Chelsea Green, Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston. I don't know any of those names, but they all work for WWE, so they're bona fide.
Some of those names I have heard, but none of them brought a face to mind when you told me.
I looked at them and I was like, no, don't know any of these guys, but this is going to be fun anyway, because I think wrestling is drama. And and this is a mashup with Greek mythology, hence Titan Takedown.
Yeah. And there's definitely improv and stuff involved in wrestling.
Absolutely.
Even though it's scripted, a lot of stuff has to happen off the cuff. So I think they would be uniquely qualified.
Yeah, I think this will be a fun one. So if you like that nerdy kind of thing, check out the new season and the last season of Dimension 20.
Cool. What are you pulling out of the vault?
All right, so I want to go on a journey. Here. Okay, so I was feeling like, man, I was so down about this movie that I closed my notes and walked away. I didn't do a Vault of Darkness. So
not that I'm glad that you suffered, but I find it very interesting. We had such a similar experience.
Yeah, I mean, we're just people, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm only a man. I'm not meant to see these things.
Yeah, I don't like this. I like people. Like, I don't want to see them suffering.
Yeah.
So I was trying to figure out like what I could do. Anyway, I decided I'm doing 1992.
Okay.
Because 1992. It was fucking sick, dude.
Some cool stuff happened.
So first of all, I focused on music.
Yeah.
Because I could go with a whole bunch. I'm going to start with the bands that were formed in 1992. There's like a huge list of them, but a couple of them drew my eye, and I was like, oh my God. And I started looking for more.
Yeah.
I cut it down to ones that I think were notable and maybe a couple niche ones, whatever. Anyway, Amon Amarth.
Wow, 92, that early.
Yeah, Balzac.
Oh, in Japan? Yeah.
Boris, also Japan.
Yeah.
Choking Victim, who I love.
Yeah.
Crux Shadows, great goth band. Gorgoroth, the seminal black metal act.
Yeah.
Outcast. Everyone knows who they are.
Yeah.
Seventh Mary 3, important to me. American rock music. Weezer, also American rock music. Wu-Tang Clan.
Formed in 92.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Zeke, who we've seen like half a dozen times.
Yes. They're from Seattle, right?
Yeah.
So they're, hometown heroes.
Yeah. So like, that's some dope bands started in 92. That's a strong.
Just listening to the first album from all of those bands is a nice week.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a fun time.
So we got a bunch of albums. I tried to narrow it down. I didn't get it very narrowed. So I'm just going to talk about this.
You rattle these off?
So The Cure, Wish, Alice in Chains, Dirt.
Which, I'm going to say, until this last year, Wish was their last good album.
Yeah, Wish is great. Alice in Chains, Dirt. I have that hoodie. I wear it every day. I love Alice in Chains. Nick Cave, Henry's Dream. Pantera, Vulgar Display of Power. Their best album. Tom Waits, Bone Machine, which is actually his highest charting album.
Yeah.
Neil Young, Harvest Moon. I love Harvest Moon. I've listened to it hundreds of times.
Wow, it came out in 92.
Yeah. Ministry, Psalm 69.
Oh,
STP, Core.
Yeah.
L7, Bricks Are Heavy. I included them because I've seen L7 a few times live, and they deliver.
Yeah.
Morrissey, Your Arsenal.
Okay, good one.
Dark Throne, A Blaze in the Northern Sky.
Oh, God.
One of the greatest black metal albums of all time. So good. Yeah. And those two dudes from Dark Throne are the most legit realness. They do not front.
I love Fenriz so much.
Yeah, they're
as a mailman myself. Very relatable.
Yeah, they're just the most cool dudes. Annie Lennox, Diva, her debut solo album. And
love Annie Lennox.
Maybe the most important album on this list, culturally in America, Dr. Dre, The Chronic.
Okay.
Faith No More, Angel Dust, their best album. Okay. Social Distortion, Somewhere Between Heaven and Hell.
Good one.
Iron Maiden, Fear of the Dark, a good one.
Okay.
Body Count. Excellent. Here's another good hip hop album. Ice Cube, The Predator.
Oh, I love Predator.
The next one's one of my favorites from the 90s. In my high school days, White Zombie, Les Exorcisto, Devil Music, Volume 1.
Yeah, strong.
Very good.
Album.
Megadeth, Countdown to Extinction. One of the last good albums from Megadeth. We got Sublime, 40 Ounces to Freedom. I'm not a fan of that, but in 92, everyone listened to the radio, so we can all sing all those songs.
Yeah, I think that album is a bona fide classic, even if Douche Bros have sort of run it into the ground.
Absolutely. It's just good songs. Yeah. Tori Amos, Little Earthquakes.
Classic.
REM, Automatic for the People.
Yeah.
And the last one on my list, I chose as my favorite one on this list, which was hard to not choose, A Blaze in the Northern Sky. Danzig 3.
How the Gods Kill.
This is the best Danzig album.
Oh, better than 4?
I love 4, but this one really gets me. I don't know why. I just really love this album. So Danzig 3 is really, in my opinion, where the members, the classic lineup, Glenn Danzig, Eerie Von, John Christ, and Chuck Biscuits, really gel.
Yeah.
They properly write and play together, and it's just so smooth.
But David, I thought Glenn Danzig wrote all of those songs solo.
Absolutely
without any input from the other 3 guys.
No. And I love the cover, the H.R. Giger artwork.
Yeah.
That's very, very cool. And it was Giger himself altered it for Danzig, so it would be usable. I'm going to say my favorite songs on this album are the title track, How the Gods Kill, good. Dirty Black Summer, and then the dark horse, which is Sistinas, which is the Roy Orbison style, grounded, low-key, lo-fi, just amazing sleeper song.
And that's one that he wrote for Roy Orbison, correct? I think.
Well, so the story behind this song is that there was Chuck Biscuits was doing some like drum warm-up stuff, and Danzig just like picked up his guitar and started like playing that simple arpeggiated riff. And the other guys kind of joined in, and within like half an hour they had a rough song structure. And then Danzig wrote the lyrics, you know, it's kind of for Roy Orbison, but that was what he was channeling, and they wrote this as a group. This was a collaborative song, and I really like this album. I like that song. And
those are probably the same tracks that I would have picked also. Those are really strong songs.
They're really good songs. I almost put When the Dying Calls as well. I love that song. But this is just a good ass album, and honestly 1992 was a good ass year.
Yeah, I mean, and that has probably nothing to do with us being 14 years old and like every single one of these things blowing our minds when we heard it.
I know. It's like I look at it and I think like, was Harvest Moon like an Amazeballs album? Like I think it is. I think it is. And Alice in Chains Dirt, I think it's kind of universally agreed that that's an amazing album. This was just, I think this is in an era when it was pre-internet, really, and so like music was way like it was way more narrow. There wasn't as much of it, and there weren't as many. So like we things really had to get quality tested before they made it to the masses. You didn't get much. I mean, I'm not going to say mediocre music wasn't put out, but
sure it was.
There's a lot of really good things being put out.
Most of those albums, or maybe not. No, actually, most of those albums are things that I listen to. Several of them, I listened to songs from them this past week. Like Ice Cube the Predator. That's been a go-to record for me since the early 90s.
I love Body Count. I always have. Like those guys throw down.
Well, and it's the story behind that where like in LA you have like the thrash metal and the hardcore punk scene, and Ice-T had like a homie that was a crazy guitar player. And he was like, I'm gonna start a metal band so that my homie can play in it. And they're good. Like,
they are good.
They're straight up good. The most recent Body Count shit is good.
Yeah, whenever Body Count puts out music, I spin it. It's really good. They haven't put out a stinker ever.
Yeah, just a good sort of crossover thrash hardcore band with Ice-T. Like, it's not the same as his rap music, but it's like just where he gets his kind of crazy aggression out.
Yeah, you could call it rap metal if you want. I don't think that's offensive, but I just think it's metal.
Yeah, it's
crossover metal. It's very punky.
It's close to Suicidal Tendencies.
Yeah, he yells a lot. Yeah. Like it's a lot more yelly and a lot less flow. It's just great. Anyway, Cultists, so if you haven't listened to this stuff from 1992, look up 1992 music because that was a good year.
Yeah.
There was some magic happening in 1992.
Do we include all of these links in the show notes?
No, just maybe How the Gods Kill is probably fine.
That's the one you're gonna
that's the one I wanted to really hang my hat on because I really enjoy that album, and I think like if you're a metalhead, you're gonna like it. If you're a goth, you're gonna like it. If you just like rock, you're gonna like it.
Yeah,
it's bluesy American hard rock with occasional metal vibes, but it's not really a heavy album.
Right on.
It's just great. So what do you got? What are you pulling out of the vault?
I also went music, and I almost recommended Blue Velvet because when you finish watching Fire Walk with Me on Max, it queues up Blue Velvet next. And I thought, well, that's a good recommendation. But I went, no, it's too easy. If they watch it, the Max is going to already recommend that. So I was thinking about it, and I'm going to recommend an album from Thought Gang. And Thought Gang is Angelo Badalamenti and David Lynch.
Wow.
There's 2 Thought Gang tracks on the soundtrack for Fire Walk With Me. They recorded a whole album, but it did not get released until 2018.
Dang.
And so I actually had listened to the Thought Gang album recently. I had listened to it before we watched this movie, and I did not know, other than personnel, I didn't know the album was connected to this movie in any way.
Yeah.
But the album and the joint moniker Thought Gang spun out of the recordings for this movie. And Lynch did a music video for it. He writes all the lyrics. Badalamenti sings the lyrics in a sort of Tom Waits growled spoken word style.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Tom Waits' album Bonesaw. I think that kind of Tom Waitsy experimental stuff is a bit of an influence, as is the earlier jazz Tom Waits stuff. It feels very Tom Waitsy to me.
Yeah.
But with David Lynch's lyrics and Badalamenti's playing. And so, if you sat through this movie, maybe decompress a little bit with some avant jazz spoken word music.
Yeah, I don't think that's for me because I don't like Tom Waits much, and I don't like Badalamenti much. But I can respect that some people do like that, just like some people wouldn't like Body Count. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, and since you listed a bunch, so I'm going to mention David Lynch's 2 solo albums, Crazy Clown Time and The Big Dream. Sonically very similar in the sort of jazz blues sort of structures, but with David Lynch doing the vocals himself.
Oh.
And you know what David Lynch sounds like if you've seen it in any of these Twin Peaks things, or he's Special Agent Gordon.
Yeah.
That's how he sings too. It's I love it. I like those albums very much.
Well, that's cool. I don't know if I'm gonna check out that Thought Gang, but I'll check out Lynch because I like Lynch. He's a good one.
Yeah, The Big Dream I think is probably the one you would like more of the 2 albums.
Nice. I will check that out.
Cool.
We'd like to thank you for joining the Nightshade Cult.
Until we meet again, we're wishing you